or something like that, just hung carcass in his garage like a deer, like he went out hunting and he just hunted this person. So ultimately, that's horrific. Resident Evil as a franchise was one of those defining things. Each installment, for at least the main series, the number series, was supposed to be interactive horror movie and supposed to be scary and terrifying, psychologically and otherwise. The deaths in there, the creatures. Imagine it's not a video game. There's no CG. Imagine this was something that stood in front of you. That is the concept of what some of these things are. Nostalgia Critic did a top 11. It was, I think, his very first Nostalgia Ween. I could be wrong on that. But he did a top 11 scariest performances. And he did it based on the concept of horror, There was a character in one of the first ones, I think it was called Oliver or whatever. He talked about him and defined as like, if this guy, he beat his wife or murdered her or whatever, he did all these things, even when he's trying to get his dog to come towards him, it's still very kind of like you're scared of what he's going to do with the dog. So, that's the whole point on horror, and I don't think that as a company or as a storyteller or as a video game maker, the video game, again, it's supposed to be something, it's a game, but it's also a video. It's a video game. So a video is something that is supposed to, inform you of things, of story or something. It's supposed to be an interactive story. It's supposed to be a game, so it's supposed to be fun, whatever. But Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, like after Resident Evil 4, they realized, oh, this got us a lot more money, after we've had troubles or whatever like that. And they started replicating it. Like, Resident Evil 4 went away from zombies and they went more towards mutation and they went more towards parasites and things where you were becoming a mutant more than a zombie. They went more towards intellectual bad guys where they can... In Resident Evil 4, they were triggered and everything by basically, they lived their normal life and were villagers until an outsider came in, and then they become hostile. Even when you defeat the game, it shows that all the villagers and the priests and everything from the castle, they were normal. And granted, that could have just been sketches from them before they were given the Las Plagas, but still. Resident Evil 5 had another weird parasite, which is basically, hey, we discovered this, and almost Umbrella and all the bad guy corporations and gangs and whatnot in and organizations in Resident Evil almost reflect the corporations and whatnot in our reality, where they realized something was big and it made them a lot of cash, and they keep going with it despite what the public thinks. Like they target drones basically, where people, they accept what is fed to them. To quote a movie that I kind of like, I saw the original 3, and I kind of like it as I don't know, I kind of like the remake of RoboCop. Sorry, I do, and I'll go into that another time once I have a chance to rewatch the original 3 and the remake. Which, one thing that you have to keep in mind is that when you remake a movie, you oftentimes will, because you don't want to copy and paste it, which apparently is one reason why Psycho got, with Vince Vaughn, which I've not seen, got a lot of backlash, was the fact that it was a shot-for-shot remake. It was just, had new characters and it was in color. And nobody liked that. So, and I can agree with that, even if I haven't seen it, which maybe I kind of probably will see it just because I'm curious. But when it comes to remakes, they should be, to one extent or another, modernized. You are telling a story, but you have different tools to tell that same story. So the fact that he has modern technology put in him instead of just, this retro tech where he's very which, if you look, I actually watched the movie when when I owned the original RoboCop and the remake, and I was like, okay, the movements of RoboCop in like even when he gets his like 3.0 suit or chip or whatever. I played the game, the mobile game, when it came out, and they called it, I think, 3.0, the black suit, basically. The black suit, you know, when he's doing that combat, he actually does the same exact movements. He does very stiff out. He just does it faster. That's the thing. Is it's the same operating system. It's the same movements. It's just faster. And yes, I've heard complaints that, you know, just everything looks better in black, and that's not true. You know, sometimes it is when you just want nothing to clash. But when they originally brought him out and he's like, you know, oh, this is a dream or whatever, he was in the original RoboCop armor. Like, it was just a modernized version of the original armor. And then they're like, let's make it black. Because it was a corporation decision. They're like, okay. Oh, yeah, sorry for the ramble. So this is the problem that our society has, that Star Wars, surprisingly, actually, I made full circle. Star Wars suffers from it, and so does Resident Evil, which is that in Resident Evil 6, they took the mutation factor, which apparently people liked enough for them to do, or maybe it was a continuity thing to where it's like, again, in that world and in our world, they're like, oh, this is a new thing. Let's exploit it as much as we can until we have nothing left to squeeze out of it. Touchscreen technology. Before Apple came along, as far as I'm aware, we had Coinstar. You know, you go to Albertsons or you go to Walmart or Myers or whatever. I'm from California, so we have Albertsons and Vons. I'm now in Ohio. We have other things. If you go to any of these places, they have what is called a Coinstar. You dump your, you know, piggy bank in there, and it will count your change, and it will actually take 10% of whatever it is. So if you have a full piggy bank, you might lose about $1 worth of stuff. So you're better off actually going to a bank or actually going to a convenience store and say, hey, this is what I have. Believe it or not, they'll do this. Not always, it depends on the person, but some people will say, hey, I have all these pennies. Do you care if I exchange it for whatever it is? So if you have a quarter's worth of pennies, they'll give you a quarter. You know, some people, they'll do that because to them, their drawer as a cashier has to meet a number amount. Doesn't matter how many of each different type of currency, different coin, they just need a number. So it doesn't, God, what the hell's wrong with my nose? So anyways, you know, people wanted some dude with a cape and a dark voice sympathizer is what this guy in the video says. They want, you know, a guy in a black armor suit like Darth Vader. So that's what they took. They took no politics, so they took everything out of it. They basically started fresh and redid A New Hope and took different elements from the other trilogy, or not the other trilogy, the other two movies, and just sprinkled it on and compressed it so that we can say, hey, look, all the best things, all the cliches, all the everything that you were expecting us to do or want to get out of the way, we'll do in this movie, which is another thing that I've heard of is they did things just to get it done and out of the way. That way they could start a new thing. But ultimately, the mutations in Resident Evil, I haven't played very many of the side games, but they call them all viruses, but yet some of them I don't think are viruses. Some of them are just simply mutations. Again, you have a virus, which, yes, a virus could probably do this, but just, I don't know. I wouldn't mind, maybe it's my depravity of it. I want to see things go back to their roots to an extent. Resident Evil 7, which has a very interesting title, they like highlight evil and they spell it to where it's a Roman numeral 7. Kind of cool. But they deal with like cannibals, and I'm like, what the fuck is with this shit? Now, that brings me back, again, I need to probably edit after this, being that I have like 5-hour-long videos. But Resident Evil is supposed to be the pioneering franchise for horror. Now, yes, they have probably, being that, tried every avenue that they could. They're like, oh, the Wii came out. The Wii came out. let's try motion stuff, because they have the ninja, the wand, and whatnot. You know, the whole concept of what the Wii is, you know, motion control instead of an actual controller. So they tried that with Umbrella Chronicle, or the Umbrella Chronicles. You know, they've tried first person, and they're going to do it again. They're trying cannibalism, which is terrifying. Could you imagine if you stumble, just like in some of the Texas Chainsaw movies? I don't know how many there are, or if any of them are remakes or whatnot. Which, funny thing is, to moviegoers, let's say you liked the 2005 it was, Texas Chainsaw remake that had the prequel, Texas Chainsaw, the beginning. I think I saw that in, I kind of liked it, although I didn't see the original, so I don't know anything about it. So as a standalone film, I liked those. But apparently they're going to remake Texas Chainsaw again. Hollywood needs to stop with the remakes. That's a rant for another time. Probably when I have better equipment. That way I'm not sitting here getting all these thoughts out into an incoherent video like this. So, Resident Evil, they're starting with first-person view, cannibals. I'm curious on... See, here's one thing, is that all of these, like, people complain about some stuff, and, like, here's the problem with humans in our society as a whole, especially in America. We want things our way. We are selfish fucks. We really are. Oh, well, I don't want to play all these side games. And this isn't just for video games. This is for everything as a whole. Star Wars, TV shows, cartoons, whatever. Like, there was a cartoon called, I think it was actually just called TMNT. It wasn't called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on paper. Came out in 2001 or 2003. And it went through different animation styles. It was running for like years. I don't even know what channel it was running on. But, you know, I wanted to try and watch it and skip certain things. One reason is the fact that I felt the Triceraton saga where they went where they went to outer space. I had seen that recently. I was trying to actually figure out, I wanted them just to be in New York. Now, you can't have the Ninja Turtles back in New York because they created subtitles for that, you know, like TMNT, back in the sewer, or TMNT in outer space, TMNT in cyberspace, whatever. Unless you just want to assume and have a story where you basically don't care what happens prior, again, like with Star Wars, they attack the ship, we don't know why, we just say it's awesome, and we take the story from that point on, as a starting point. I have a hard time doing that, especially if I have the knowing that there's stuff that came prior, and so I will try and go through and watch everything. Now, there's a lot of people that don't like the side stories of Resident Evil, the side games, but when you have an continuity, a entire universe where they have the planet Earth and they have however many people that we have in our world, and they have terrorist problems and everything like that. Callie! Yeah, you better be fucking... Oh, God! Cat's trying to destroy the tree. I'm very particular about my tree. I'm stopping.